He was pronounced dead and placed in a plastic bag. Luckily, one of his friends recognized him and immediately called the doctor. The bag was rapidly filling with blood. With 37 bullet, shrapnel, and bayonet wounds, eyes caked in blood, and no obvious heartbeat, the doctor concluded that Benavides is indeed dead. But he was not. So I'm going to read this. I don't remember, this was in some, I should have it in front of me, and I don't. So my apologies to the author of this. First story that I just told is the one that I lived through. Obviously, I met that guy, World War II. This one's a little bit different story, but it goes right along with what Billy and I were talking about. Roy Benavides was born on August 5th, 1935, in a small Texan town. His father was a Mexican farmer, and he died of tuberculosis when Roy was 2 years old. 3 years later, his mother passed away for the same reasons, and Roy and his younger brother were taken in by relatives. Roy attended school sporadically because he had to work in order to support both himself and his brother, and at age 15, he dropped out of high school to work full-time. In 1952, 17-year-old Roy enlisted in the Texas Army National Guard, and 3 years later switched to active duty. In 1959, after completing airborne training, he was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. He proceeded to join the elite Army Special Forces and became part of the highly classified Studies and Observations Group, which conducted covert, unconventional warfare operations prior to and during the Vietnam War. In 1965, while on a mission in South Vietnam, he stepped on a landmine and was seriously injured. His doctors concluded that he would never walk again, but against all odds and doctors' instructions, Roy refused to give up. Every night, he would sneak out of his hospital bed, and using his chin and his elbows, he would crawl to a nearby wall, and starting from wiggling his toes, he attempted to get up. He repeated this ritual for more than a year, supported by his fellow patients, and the nights of sweat and tears ended with him walking out of the hospital in July 1966. No one would have guessed that this was just an introductory achievement on his part. 6 months later, he was back in these guys are amazing. 6 months later, he was back in South Vietnam. On the 2nd of May, 1968, Roy was in his base near the Cambodian border. At 1:30 p.m., they received an SOS call from the radio. A 12-man Special Forces patrol was spotted by an infantry battalion of the People's Army of Vietnam, approximately 1,000 of them. 3 helicopters unsuccessfully attempted to rescue them, only to return damaged and with injured men. Sergeant Benavides volunteered to take part in another attempt. As President Ronald Reagan would later comment, in what ensued was ever to be filmed, no one would believe the story. The helicopter was flying over a dense jungle, and while hovering some 10 feet off the ground, Benavides jumped out, carrying only a medic bag and a knife. He ran 75 yards towards his wounded comrades, and in the process got hit by an AK-47, and then again by shrapnel from a hand grenade. When he reached his destination, his face, his head, and his right leg were wounded. 4 of his mates were already dead, while the remaining 8 were injured and unable to move. Despite excruciating pain, he dragged them to the nearby rescue helicopter, and with the mission almost fulfilled, he ran back one last time to pick up the body of a dead team member and some classified documents. The Vietnamese intensified fire, and he was shot in the abdomen and once again hit by grenade shrapnel. Almost simultaneously, the aircraft pilot was killed and the helicopter crashed. With his intestines exposed, Benavides picked up the documents and ran back to the wreck in order to help out the wounded and attempt to organize them into a defensive perimeter. It proved a success, and he managed to call for tactical airstrikes and for another rescue helicopter to be sent. While providing first aid to one of his comrades, he once again was shot. He kept going. The rescue helicopter arrived and he began ferrying the soldiers to the craft. In the middle of it all, as he was carrying a severely injured soldier, he was clubbed down from behind by a seemingly dead NVA soldier. With his jaw broken, he was on the brink of dying by the enemy's bayonet. He quickly grabbed the blade, pulled the enemy soldier, and stabbed him with his Bowie knife. But not before the bayonet jabbed right through his left forearm. With everyone on board, he picked up an AK-47 and killed 2 more NVA soldiers before finally letting his crew members pull him into the helicopter. The 6-hour flight was finally over. By the time they got to base, Benavidez's body was not moving. He was pronounced dead and placed in a plastic bag. Luckily, one of his friends recognized him and immediately called the doctor. The bag was rapidly filling with blood. With 37 bullet, shrapnel, and bayonet wounds, eyes caked in blood, and no obvious heartbeat, the doctor concluded that Benavidez is indeed dead. But he was not. Unable to move or speak, he managed to do only one thing. He spit into the doctor's hovering face. He was immediately evacuated to his old Brooke Army Medical Center, where he recovered. For his immense bravery, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross and 4 Purple Hearts. In 1973, details of this event broke out, and an initiative was taken to award Benavidez the highest honor of all, the Medal of Honor. Since the time limit had already expired, the Congress voted to exempt him from the rule. But the rules also stated that he needed a living witness of the incident. Believing then that all witnesses had died, Benavidez gave up. Fortunately, Brian O'Connor, the former Benavidez radio man, was among the survivors, who was on holiday in Australia when he read about his comrade's case in the papers. He instantly contacted him and provided the commission with the detailed account of that horrific day. On February 24th, 1981, President Ronald Reagan presented Sergeant Roy Benavidez with the Medal of Honor. Upon retiring from the military, Roy toured the schools and military facilities, promoting education and fighting for the rights of disabled veterans. He wrote 3 autobiographical accounts of his life, and on November 29, 1998, Roy Benavidez suffered respiratory failure and complications of diabetes. He died between the well-known walls of the Brooke Army Medical Center and was buried with full military honors. Boom.
I've heard that story before. Actually,
I had not. Yeah, I saw you shaking your head up and down as I was reading it. So I had not heard that story before. And I know that there is a billion other stories just like it, but that one in particular seems just otherworldly. And it's just one of those things I don't have I can't imagine. I don't have words. You know, I always bring it to perspective and common day or current day today. People don't come to work when they don't feel good in the morning, or they got a headache, or the myriad of their dog died, or the myriad of it's their birthday, right? All of the things that we do in this soft world that we live in, that was created by Mexican farmers from tiny Texas towns born in the first part of the 20th century. And it's humbling to think that I have any issues, that I have any problems, that I'm in any pain, that I feel any discomfort, that I'm put upon at all when human beings like this walked the earth.